Hello everyone. Welcome back to Naruto Fix. Today we have another interesting What If Naruto story, which is what if Naruto and Eida changed each other's fate. Part 1. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, without wasting any time, let's begin. The first time Naruto Uzumaki met Eida, she already knew everything about him. That was the terrifying part. Not her beauty, not her strange powers. Not even the way people unconsciously fell in love with her. It was the fact she looked at Naruto like someone reading the final page of a story before anyone else even opened the book. The night sky above Konoha remained unusually quiet. Too quiet. Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument staring toward distant forests while cold wind moved softly through his sea. Look, something felt wrong tonight. Kurama noticed too. You're restless. Naruto crossed his arms. Feels like someone's watching. Honestly, that sentence happened way too often in Naruto's life lately. Then suddenly, a voice echoed behind him softly. You always notice loneliness quickly. Naruto spun instantly, and froze, because standing behind him, beneath silver moonlight, was the most beautiful woman Naruto had ever seen. Long pale hair drifted softly in the wind. Blue glowing eyes shimmered unnaturally. And somehow, despite never meeting before, she looked at Naruto like she already understood him completely. Naruto blinked repeatedly. The woman tilted her head slightly. Unexpectedly gentle. You're less loud than I imagined. Naruto immediately pointed dramatically. That is objectively false. Unexpectedly. She laughed quietly. Not mockingly. Actually amused. And for one brief second, Naruto noticed something strange. The laugh sounded lonely. The woman slowly stepped closer. Moonlight reflected through her strange blue eyes softly. Hello Naruto. Naruto frowned slightly. Okay, how do you know my name? Silence. Then softly, I know almost everything. Kurama growled instantly inside the seal. Dangerous. Naruto stepped backward carefully. Right. He pointed awkwardly. That sentence is usually evil. The woman looked away briefly. Usually. The wind moved quietly around the monument. Then Naruto finally asked, Who are you? Her glowing eyes shifted toward him again. And quietly, almost sadly, she answered, Eida. Silence. Naruto blinked. Pretty name. Eida froze slightly. Because honestly, most people reacted to her with obsession. Infatuation. Desperation. Not calm compliments. The difference unsettled her immediately. Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. So why are you on the Hokage monument at midnight being mysterious? Eida quietly stared toward the sleeping village below. Then softly whispered, Because I wanted to see if you were real. Silence. Naruto frowned. I'm standing here. That's not what I meant. Her voice carried something heavier now. Lonelier. For years I watched your life from far away. Quote. Naruto froze slightly. Watched. Eida nodded once. My power lets me observe almost anything. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Naruto slowly realized the horror. Wait. His eyes widened. You've been spying on everyone. Quote. Eida looked genuinely uncomfortable suddenly. I don't enjoy calling it that. Naruto pointed immediately. That is definitely what it is. Honestly. Fair. Then unexpectedly, Eida laughed again quietly, and Naruto noticed something important. Every time she smiled, sadness stayed hidden underneath it. Kurama growled softly inside the seal. She isn't lying. Naruto looked toward Eida more carefully now. You really watched my life. Silence. Then quietly, yes. The answer should have felt terrifying. Instead, Naruto mostly felt confused, because Eida's expression didn't look manipulative. It looked tired. Then softly, she continued, I watched you grow up alone. Naruto's expression shifted slightly. I watched people fear you. Moonlight shimmered softly across her glowing eyes. And every time, her voice became quieter. You still chose kindness. Silence stretched between them. Naruto suddenly felt uncomfortable, because recently, too many dangerous people became emotionally invested in him somehow. Code. Nagato, Obito, and now this mysterious girl who watched his entire life like a distant ghost. Naruto sighed deeply. Okay, I need people to stop secretly observing my childhood. Unexpectedly, Eida smiled softly again. Sorry. The apology sounded genuine. Then suddenly, Naruto noticed something strange. The air around Eida felt heavy. Not chakra exactly. Something emotional. Like invisible pressure spreading outward naturally. Naruto frowned slightly. What's your ability? Silence. Then softly, everyone falls in love with me. Naruto blinked. What? Eida looked away briefly. My power affects almost everyone automatically. Quote. The wind moved quietly around the monument again. They become obsessed. Then quieter. Unable to resist me. Naruto stared blankly. That sounds super inconvenient. Eida froze slightly. Because honestly, nobody ever reacted like that. People usually became overwhelmed instantly. Desperate. Emotional. But Naruto only looked sympathetic. Not enchanted. The realization shook her slightly. Then Naruto pointed awkwardly. Wait, you're saying everyone falls for you? Eida nodded silently. Naruto scratched his head. That sounds exhausting honestly. Silence crushed the monument. Because suddenly, Eida realized something impossible. Naruto wasn't affected. At all. No obsession. No forced love. Nothing. Her blue eyes widened slightly. Why aren't you reacting? Naruto blinked. Should I? Eida slowly stepped backward. For the first time in years. She looked genuinely shocked. Impossible. Kurama growled quietly inside the seal. Her power doesn't reach Biju chakra. Naruto frowned internally. Meaning, the fox disrupts her ability. The realization hit Eida instantly too. And suddenly, her expression changed completely. Not shock. Relief. Real relief. Because for the first time in her entire life, someone looked at her normally. Not enchanted. Not controlled. Just honest. Eida's voice trembled slightly. You can actually choose how you feel about me. Naruto blinked. Yeah. Silence. Then suddenly, Eida laughed softly again. Except this time, tears quietly formed in her eyes. Naruto panicked instantly. Wait. He pointed frantically. Why are you crying? Eida quickly wiped her eyes embarrassed. Sorry. Naruto looked completely confused. I didn't even do anything. That's why. Quote. Silence. The answer hit strangely hard. Because suddenly, Naruto understood. Nobody ever treated Eida like a normal person. Only a fantasy. An obsession. A power. Never just her. The same loneliness looked different. But Naruto recognized it instantly. Then softly, he sat down atop the monument edge beside her. Eida blinked slightly. What are you doing? Naruto shrugged. You looked sad. Honestly, simple answers always hit hardest. The village lights glowed peacefully beneath them. For several long moments, neither spoke. Then quietly, Eida whispered, do you know what the worst part is? Naruto looked toward her. No one has ever loved me naturally. Quote. Silence. Every smile. Every compliment. Every confession. Her glowing eyes lowered slightly. None of it was real. The words hurt more than Naruto expected. Because suddenly, he realized Eida's curse perfectly. She could make anyone love her. Which meant she could never trust love again. Naruto quietly looked toward the stars above Konoha. That sucks. Eida laughed weakly. You always say simple things. Because complicated things are annoying. Quote. Unexpectedly. That made her smile again. A real one this time. Then suddenly, her expression shifted. Serious now. Naruto. The wind around the monument became colder slightly. Your fate is changing. Quote. Naruto blinked. That sounded dramatic. Eida ignored the joke. Instead, her glowing eyes locked onto him carefully. I've watched countless futures. Silence. And in almost all of them, for the first time, fear appeared in her expression. You die alone. The night suddenly felt freezing. Naruto stared at her blankly. Well, that got depressing fast. But Eida didn't laugh. Because deep down, she wasn't joking. Then softly, almost desperately, she whispered, but something changes every future where you meet me. Silence crushed the monument. Naruto frowned slightly. What changes? Eida looked directly into his eyes. and quietly answered the sentence that would alter both their lives forever. You stop saving the world. The wind moved softly through her pale hair. And start saving me instead. Cold wind moved across the Hokage monument silently. Below them, Konoha slept peacefully beneath scattered lantern lights. But sitting beside Eida, Naruto Uzumaki suddenly felt like the night itself had become heavier. You stop saving the world. Moonlight reflected softly through Eida's glowing blue eyes. And start saving me instead. Silence stretched endlessly between them. Naruto blinked once, then pointed awkwardly. That sounds very emotionally manipulative. Unexpectedly, Eida laughed quietly through lingering tears. I knew you'd say something like that. Naruto crossed his arms stubbornly. Well yeah, he pointed harder. You can't just casually predict my tragic future at midnight. Honestly, fair. But Eida's smile faded quickly again. Because deep down, she wasn't exaggerating. She had seen it, again, and again, and again, future after future, ending with Naruto exhausted, alone, buried beneath endless responsibility until nothing remained except duty. The terrifying part was how easily Naruto accepted that possibility. Eida quietly looked toward the sleeping village below. You don't value your own life enough. Naruto froze slightly. That's rude. Quote, it's true. Silence. Naruto looked away briefly. Because honestly, part of him knew she wasn't entirely wrong. Then suddenly, Kurama growled softly inside the seal. She sees too much. Naruto frowned internally. Can she actually see the future? Not exactly. The Nine Tails sounded uneasy now. She sees possibilities. That honestly didn't make Naruto feel better. Then Eida quietly asked, do you know what happens in most futures? Quote, Naruto sighed dramatically. I'm guessing nothing cheerful. Eida's glowing eyes lowered slightly. You slowly become lonelier again. The wind moved softly through Naruto's blonde hair. People keep depending on you more and more. Quote, her voice became quieter. They stop seeing Naruto Uzumaki. Then softer. And only see the Hokage. Silence crushed the monument. Because somehow, that possibility hurt more than dying. Naruto laughed weakly under his breath. Wow. He scratched his cheek awkwardly. You really are bad at cheerful conversations. Unexpectedly, Eida smiled slightly. You're still joking. Naruto shrugged. If I stop joking, I'll start overthinking. Quote, fair. For one brief moment, the atmosphere softened again. Then suddenly, Eida froze. Her glowing eyes widened sharply. Naruto immediately noticed. What? Silence. Then quietly, someone's coming. Quote, whoosh. Several shinobi landed across nearby rooftops instantly. Anbu. And behind them, Shikamaru Nara stepped forward with a deeply tired expression. Naruto. Naruto blinked. Why does everybody keep appearing dramatically tonight? Quote, Shikamaru ignored the joke completely. His eyes immediately locked onto Eida. And for one terrifying second, Naruto watched his expression change unnaturally. Not fear, not suspicion, infatuation. Shikamaru froze completely, staring at her. Beautiful. Naruto's eyes widened instantly. Oh. Eida immediately looked uncomfortable. See. Her voice lowered quietly. It always happens. The surrounding Anbu reacted too. Several lowered their weapons unconsciously. One operative actually stepped forward slightly, like he forgot why he came there. Naruto frowned immediately. Hey. He waved his arms aggressively. Focus. Shikamaru blinked repeatedly, then visibly forced himself to step backward. Troublesome. Sweat formed across his forehead slightly. Naruto stared. You're resisting it. Shikamaru rubbed his temples tiredly. Barely. Eida looked genuinely surprised. Most people couldn't resist at all once affected. But Shikamaru's intelligence let him recognize something was wrong, at least partially. The strategist slowly looked toward Naruto carefully. You're unaffected. Naruto nodded once. Kurama thing apparently. Quote, the Nine Tails sounded smug immediately. Obviously. Shikamaru's expression darkened slightly. That complicates things. Naruto blinked. What things? Silence. Then Shikamaru sighed deeply. The sensory division noticed reality distortions near the monument. Quote, his eyes shifted toward Eida again briefly before forcing themselves away. And now we find a mysterious girl with mind-affecting abilities sitting next to the Hokage. Naruto pointed immediately. She's not evil. Quote, Eida froze slightly hearing that. Because honestly, nobody usually defended her that quickly. Shikamaru sighed again. Naruto. She hasn't attacked anyone. The strategist looked toward Eida carefully. Yet, the atmosphere tightened instantly. Eida quietly stood from the monument edge. Moonlight reflected softly through her pale hair while the wind moved around her silently. Then softly, I should leave. Quote, Naruto frowned. Why? Eida looked away slightly. Because eventually, her glowing eyes lowered. Everyone decides I'm dangerous. The sentence hit harder than Naruto expected. Because again, he recognized that loneliness instantly. Shikamaru noticed Naruto's expression too. And internally cursed. Because this was becoming dangerous already. Naruto connected with isolated people too easily. That empathy saved lives sometimes. Other times, it created disasters. Then suddenly, Eida froze again. Completely. Naruto noticed instantly. What now? Her glowing eyes widened slightly. And for the first time tonight, real fear crossed her face. Quote, the air around the monument shifted unnaturally. Cold, heavy, wrong. Kurama growled instantly inside the seal. Danger. Then, space itself cracked open above Konoha. WHOOOOOOOOOOOM. A massive black distortion spread across the sky violently. The entire village froze. Even the stars disappeared behind the distortion. Naruto's expression sharpened immediately. That's definitely bad. Eida stared upward silently. He found me. Silence. Naruto slowly looked toward her. Who? The distortion above the village pulsed violently again. Then, something stepped through. Tall, white robes, ancient glowing eyes, and chakra so heavy the entire village felt it instantly. Every shinobi in Konoha froze in horror. Because this presence felt inhuman. Eida's voice trembled slightly. An Otsutsuki. Naruto immediately pointed upward. Why do space people keep appearing in my life? Honestly, valid question. The Otsutsuki calmly looked down at the village beneath him. Then his glowing eyes locked directly onto Eida. And suddenly, Naruto realized something terrifying. Eida looked genuinely scared. Not uncomfortable. Not nervous. Terrified. The Otsutsuki slowly spoke. Its voice echoed across Konoha unnaturally. You were never meant to develop emotions. Silence crushed the monument. The creature's eyes shifted toward Naruto next. Then, for the first time, surprise crossed its expression slightly. Interesting. Naruto frowned immediately. I really hate when ancient god things say that. The Otsutsuki ignored him completely. Instead, it calmly extended one hand toward Eida. Return. Eida stepped backward slightly. No. The air around the monument trembled instantly. Because suddenly, her fear mixed with something else. Defiance. The Otsutsuki's expression darkened. You were created to observe fate. Its glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Not change it. Naruto slowly looked between them. Then blinked. Wait. He pointed aggressively at Eida. Created. Silence. Eida looked away briefly. And that silence answered enough already. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The Otsutsuki calmly looked toward Naruto now. Then softly spoke the sentence that changed everything. She was designed specifically to watch you. Silence shattered across the Hokage monument. Cold wind moved through Konoha while the massive black distortion above the village pulsed like a wound torn directly into the sky. And standing beneath it, Naruto Uzumaki stared blankly at Eida. She was designed specifically to watch you. Quote. The words echoed endlessly inside his head. Naruto slowly pointed at Eida. I'm sorry, what? The ancient Otsutsuki floating above Konoha remained emotionless. Its glowing eyes calmly observed Naruto like a scientist studying a successful experiment. And suddenly, Naruto hated that look. Eida quietly lowered her head. Moonlight shimmered softly across her pale hair. But she didn't deny it. That silence hurt more than any answer. Naruto blinked repeatedly. You were spying on me because alien gods made you do it. Eida's voice came out quieter than before. At first, silence crushed the monument. Naruto froze slightly. At first, the Otsutsuki calmly descended closer toward the monument. Reality distorted around its body unnaturally. You misunderstand your importance, Naruto Uzumaki. Kurama growled sharply inside the seal. Arrogant, honestly, accurate. The ancient being slowly looked down at Naruto. Your existence altered probability itself. The air around Konoha became heavier instantly. Every future containing the Nine Tails vessel became unstable. Naruto crossed his arms stubbornly. That sounded smart but also super creepy. Quote, unexpectedly, Eida almost smiled again hearing that. Even terrified, Naruto still sounded normal, still human. That mattered more than he realized. Then the Otsutsuki continued. So she was created to observe you. Quote, its glowing eyes shifted toward Eida briefly. To ensure fate corrected itself. Silence. Naruto slowly realized the horror. Corrected. Eida's expression darkened painfully. The Otsutsuki answered calmly. Your compassion repeatedly prevented catastrophic timelines. Naruto blinked. That sounds good. For humanity perhaps. The creature's voice became colder now. But your existence delays necessary evolution. Quote, Kurama growled again. I hate these people. Naruto internally nodded. Same. Then suddenly, Shikamaru stepped forward sharply. Enough cryptic nonsense. Despite Eida's ability affecting him, his expression remained focused through visible effort. What exactly is she? Silence. The Otsutsuki calmly looked toward Eida. Then quietly answered. A living observer constructed from Shibai Otsutsuki's remains. The world stopped. Even Eida flinched slightly hearing it spoken aloud. Naruto stared blankly. Okay. He pointed dramatically. That sentence sounded extremely illegal. Honestly. Fair reaction. Shikamaru's expression darkened instantly. Shibai. The name itself felt wrong somehow. Ancient. Heavy. Naruto frowned. Should I know who that is? Kurama answered immediately inside the seal. An Otsutsuki Who transcended physical existence. Silence. Naruto blinked. You know. He scratched his head awkwardly. That somehow explained absolutely nothing. The Otsutsuki ignored him completely. Instead, its attention remained entirely on Eida now. You developed attachment. Eida's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. I developed choice. The air around the monument trembled subtly. Because suddenly, the Otsutsuki looked displeased. Real displeasure. You were not designed for emotional independence. Naruto immediately pointed upward angrily. Stop talking about her like a machine. Silence spread briefly. The ancient being slowly looked toward Naruto again. And for one terrifying second, Naruto felt overwhelming pressure slam into him. Like reality itself rejecting resistance. The Otsutsuki's voice lowered. You changed her fate. Naruto frowned stubbornly despite the pressure. Good. That answer genuinely surprised the creature. Because Naruto said it without hesitation. Without fear. Without caring what cosmic consequences existed. Then softly, Naruto looked toward Eida beside him. She looked lonely. Silence crushed the monument again. Eida froze completely. Because honestly, nobody had ever simplified her existence like that before. Not weapon. Not observer. Not cursed beauty. Lonely. Just lonely. And somehow, that hurt more than everything else. The Otsutsuki's expression darkened further. Human attachment remains a disease. Naruto immediately pointed upward. You sound like a disease. Even now, Shikamaru almost sighed hearing that. Then suddenly, the black distortion above Konoha expanded violently. WHOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO More glowing eyes opened, watching the village, watching Naruto, watching Eida. The atmosphere became suffocating. The Otsutsuki calmly extended one hand toward Eida again. Return willingly. Quote. Silence. Then colder. Arkonoha suffers the correction. Naruto's expression sharpened instantly. You threatening my village now? The creature answered emotionlessly. The timeline must stabilize. Quote. The glowing eyes above Konoha intensified. Reality itself started distorting around the village now. Buildings flickered strangely. Time rippled unevenly. Naruto's stomach twisted. Because suddenly, he sensed it. Entire futures colliding. Breaking. Eida quietly stepped backward beside Naruto. And for the first time tonight, she looked genuinely hopeless. You should let me go. Naruto blinked sharply. What? Eida kept her eyes lowered. I told you already. Her voice trembled slightly. Every future changes after we meet. Moonlight reflected softly through tears forming again in her eyes. And most of them end badly. Silence. Naruto stared at her blankly. Because suddenly, he realized something horrifying. Eida wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid she'd ruin Naruto's future simply by existing near him. The same loneliness. The same self-blame. Different form. Same pain. Naruto sighed deeply. You really overthink stuff. Eida froze slightly. What? Naruto crossed his arms stubbornly. You keep acting like fate is already decided. The sky above Konoha cracked harder. The Otsutsuki's pressure intensified dangerously. And still, Naruto grinned slightly. That's not how ninja work. Silence. Even the ancient being paused briefly. Naruto pointed toward Eida firmly. She gets to choose what she becomes. Quote. Then toward himself. And so do I. The Otsutsuki's glowing eyes narrowed dangerously. Defiance against inevitability remains humanity's greatest flaw. Naruto immediately grinned wider. Yeah. Golden chakra flickered around him softly. It's also our coolest one. Kurama laughed loudly inside the seal. Finally. Then suddenly, the sky exploded. Boom. Massive dimensional fractures spread across Konoha violently. Entire sections of reality distorted unnaturally. People across the village screamed in panic. Shikamaru's eyes widened sharply. The barriers are collapsing. The Otsutsuki slowly raised both hands. If Eida remains emotionally unstable, the glowing eyes above Konoha pulsed together. Every possible future surrounding this village will collapse into chaos. Naruto froze slightly. Wait. He pointed upward aggressively. You're saying her feelings are breaking reality. Silence. Then quietly, Eida answered. Yes. Naruto stared blankly for several seconds. That is the most stressful crush problem I've ever heard. Unexpectedly, Eida laughed weakly through tears. The sound trembled slightly. Real. Human. And the instant she laughed, the collapsing sky stabilized briefly. The Otsutsuki noticed instantly. Its expression darkened. Because suddenly, it realized something dangerous. Naruto wasn't destabilizing Eida. He was grounding her emotionally. Which meant, for the first time, the observer designed to watch fate might actually begin changing it willingly. The creature's voice became colder now. You are corrupting the observer. Quote. Naruto pointed proudly. Thank you. That was not praise. Then suddenly, the glowing eyes above Konoha opened fully. And across the entire village, people started seeing different futures simultaneously. Children crying over dead families. Burning streets. Destroyed monuments. Lonely versions of themselves. Panic spread instantly. Shikamaru staggered slightly. Genjutsu. Eida's expression filled with horror. No. The wind around the monument intensified violently. Those are real possibilities. Silence crushed the battlefield. Naruto slowly realized the nightmare. The Otsutsuki wasn't attacking physically. It was flooding Konoha with broken futures. Fear itself would destroy the village from inside. Then suddenly, Naruto grabbed Eida's wrist firmly. She froze instantly. The world around them seemed to pause briefly. Naruto looked directly into her glowing eyes. Then softly said the one thing nobody in Eida's entire existence ever truly told her before. I don't care what fate wants. Silence. The collapsing sky trembled softly above them. Naruto smiled gently. You're allowed to stay. The world stopped for one impossible second. I don't care what fate wants. Naruto Uzumaki's hand remained wrapped around Eida's wrist gently. You're allowed to stay. Quote. Silence crushed the Hokage monument. Above Konoha, the fractured sky trembled violently. Thousands of distorted futures flickered across reality itself like broken mirrors. Burning villages, dead shinobi, lonely children, collapsed worlds. But for one brief moment, everything paused. Because Eida stopped shaking, the glowing blue eyes staring at Naruto widened slightly. And suddenly, the impossible happened. The future visions above Konoha weakened. The Otsutsuki froze instantly. What? Even Shikamaru Nara looked upward sharply. The fractured sky stabilized slightly around Naruto and Eida specifically. Like reality itself calmed near them. Kurama growled softly inside the seal. She's connected to possibility itself. Naruto frowned internally. Less confusing words please. Her emotions alter futures. Honestly, that somehow still sounded terrifying. Eida slowly looked down at Naruto's hand holding hers. Then quietly whispered, "You shouldn't say things like that." Naruto blinked. Why? Tears shimmered faintly in her glowing eyes again. Because I'll start believing them. Quote. Silence. The sentence hurt more than Naruto expected. Because suddenly, he understood the real tragedy behind Eida. Not her powers. Not the forced love. Hope. Hope terrified her more than loneliness did. Because if she believed someone genuinely accepted her, losing that would destroy her completely. Then suddenly, the Otsutsuki moved. WHOOOOOOOOOOOM. Reality distorted violently around the monument. Naruto barely reacted in time before the ancient being appeared directly in front of him. Golden chakra exploded instantly. Boom. The entire monument cracked apart beneath the collision. Naruto skidded backward across stone violently. OW. The Otsutsuki's glowing eyes narrowed sharply now. You interfere with predetermined outcomes. Naruto stood immediately. Yeah, that's kinda ninja tradition. Unexpectedly, the ancient being looked genuinely irritated by his attitude. Eida stepped forward suddenly. Stop. The wind around Konoha shifted unnaturally. And instantly, every distorted future in the sky froze. The Otsutsuki slowly turned toward her. Eida's glowing eyes sharpened for the first time. No sadness. No hesitation. Just anger. I won't let you touch him. Silence crushed the monument again. Because suddenly, everyone there realized something important. The observer had chosen a side. The Otsutsuki's expression darkened dangerously. You developed attachment beyond acceptable limits. Eida's pale hair moved softly in the violent wind. Yes, the answer came without hesitation. And somehow, that terrified the ancient being more than resistance itself. Because observers weren't supposed to care. Not deeply. Not personally. Naruto slowly blinked beside her. Okay, wow. He pointed awkwardly. This got emotionally intense really fast. Even now, Eida almost smiled hearing that. Then suddenly, the sky above Konoha screamed. CRAAAAAAAAACK. One enormous fracture split across reality itself. And from inside it, something massive started emerging. Naruto's eyes widened. Nope. Gigantic pale hands gripped the crack in space. Ancient fingers larger than buildings slowly pulled reality apart wider. The entire village shook violently. People screamed below. Shikamaru's expression darkened instantly. What the hell is that? The Otsutsuki answered calmly. A correction. Kurama roared inside Naruto's seal. That is Shibai's remnant. Silence. Naruto froze internally. The transcendent alien guy. Yes. Honestly, that was very bad. The massive being behind the fracture still remained mostly hidden. Only fragments visible. An eye. Ancient pale skin. Something too enormous to fully enter reality safely. And suddenly, Naruto sensed it. This thing wasn't alive normally anymore. It existed somewhere between dimensions. Between futures. Watching countless timelines simultaneously. The remnant's enormous eye slowly focused onto Naruto and Eida together. Then, for the first time, the sky itself bent unnaturally. Every future vision surrounding Konoha started collapsing into one point. One outcome. Naruto's death. Eida saw it instantly. Again. And again. Every possibility ending the same way. Naruto dying to protect everyone else. Alone. Forgotten beneath duty. Her breathing became uneven. Number. Naruto noticed immediately. Eida. Tears formed again in her eyes. Because suddenly, she realized the horrifying truth. The moment she cared about Naruto, fate started trying to erase him harder. The Otsutsuki quietly spoke. The universe rejects unstable variables. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on Naruto. He was never meant to survive this long. Naruto immediately pointed upward aggressively. Wow, that is super rude. Honestly, even Shikamaru almost admired how Naruto kept talking casually to cosmic horrors. Then suddenly, the massive eye behind reality blinked once. And Konoha changed. Instantly, Naruto froze. Because suddenly, the village looked abandoned, burned, ruined. No people, no lights, just ash. Shikamaru vanished. The Anbu vanished. Everything vanished except Naruto and Eida standing alone atop broken stone. Naruto's eyes widened. Eida looked around in horror. It merged futures. The Otsutsuki calmly stepped through the distorted landscape. This is one possible world. Ash drifted softly across the ruined village. One where Naruto Uzumaki dies tonight. Silence. Naruto slowly looked around the destroyed Konoha. Then sighed deeply. Okay. He pointed around awkwardly. This future has terrible decoration. Unexpectedly, Eida laughed through her fear again. And instantly, the ruined world flickered. Small pieces of the real Konoha returned briefly. Lights, voices, life. The Otsutsuki noticed instantly. Its expression sharpened dangerously. Emotional stabilization. Kurama growled softly. She is resisting the future. Naruto finally understood. Eida's feelings didn't merely affect people. They influenced possibility itself. And Naruto, somehow, was anchoring her emotionally enough to resist cosmic manipulation. The realization made the Otsutsuki furious. You continue contaminating fate. Naruto crossed his arms stubbornly. Maybe fate should stop being weird then. Quote, the giant eye behind reality narrowed dangerously. Then suddenly, massive pressure crushed the monument. Boom. Naruto dropped to one knee instantly. Even Kurama roared in pain. Eida staggered slightly beside him. The Otsutsuki calmly extended one hand. Remove the vessel. Reality chains erupted from the fractured sky instantly. Straight toward Naruto. Eida's eyes widened sharply. No. Without thinking, she stepped directly in front of him. The chains slammed into her instead. WHOOOOOOOOOOOOM. Blue light exploded across the sky violently. Eida screamed. Not from physical pain. Something worse. The chains were ripping through her connection to possibility itself. The futures around Konoha began collapsing wildly. Naruto grabbed her instantly. Eida. Her glowing eyes trembled violently now. It hurts. The sentence shattered something inside Naruto immediately. Because despite all her strange powers, in that moment, she just sounded scared, human, alone. The Otsutsuki's voice echoed coldly. She was never meant to choose her own heart. Naruto slowly stood. Golden chakra erupted around him violently. The monument cracked beneath his feet. And for the first time tonight, Naruto looked genuinely angry. Not loud, not reckless, furious. You keep talking about people like tools. Kurama's chakra exploded outward harder. Wind tore across the ruined future around them. And I'm getting really tired of it. The Otsutsuki calmly observed him. Then softly, you cannot defeat inevitability. Naruto gently helped Eida stand beside him again. Then grinned slightly despite the chaos. Good thing I've never listened to impossible odds before. Silence. Then suddenly, Eida realized something terrifying. For the first time since her creation, she wanted a future. Not observation. Not duty. A future beside someone. And that single emotional desire shattered destiny harder than any jutsu ever could. The sky broke apart above Konoha. Reality itself cracked endlessly while distorted futures collided across the heavens like shattered mirrors. And standing atop the collapsing Hokage monument, Naruto Uzumaki slowly helped Eida back onto her feet. Blue light still flickered painfully around her body. The chains from the fractured sky continued trying to pull her backward into distorted space. But Eida's trembling hand unconsciously tightened around Naruto's sleeve instead. And suddenly, the broken futures around them shook violently. Because the observer had made a choice. Not fate, not duty, choice. The ancient Otsutsuki floating above Konoha slowly lowered its glowing eyes. For the first time, its expression showed something close to concern. Impossible. Eida's breathing remained uneven. Pain spread through her body every second she resisted. Because deep down, her existence itself was designed to obey cosmic balance. Not fight it, but Naruto's warmth beside her made surrender suddenly feel unbearable. Naruto looked upward toward the fractured sky angrily. You people really hate free will, huh? The Otsutsuki answered calmly. Free will creates chaos. Naruto immediately pointed upward. Yeah, that's why it's awesome. Quote, honestly, even while reality collapsed, he still sounded ridiculously confident. Kurama laughed loudly inside the seal. You finally sound like yourself again. Golden chakra erupted around Naruto harder now. The broken monument cracked beneath his feet while violent wind exploded across Konoha. And suddenly, the distorted futures above the village reacted. Naruto's determination destabilized them. Because unlike Eida, Naruto never accepted inevitable outcomes easily. The Otsutsuki noticed instantly. Your will disrupts probability. Naruto grinned slightly. People keep telling me that. Then, he stepped forward, straight toward a literal cosmic entity. Honestly, that should have terrified him more. The Otsutsuki calmly raised one hand. WHOOOOOOOOOOOM. Reality folded violently around Naruto instantly. Thousands of possible deaths exploded across his vision simultaneously. Naruto impaled, burned, buried beneath ruins, alone, again and again and again. Every future ending with sacrifice. The pressure nearly crushed him. But then, Naruto heard Eida's voice quietly behind him. Naruto. He froze slightly, then looked backward, and seeing her, terrified yet still reaching toward him, suddenly stabilized something inside his chest. Because for once, someone wasn't looking at Naruto as Hokage. Not savior, not Jinchuriki, just Naruto. And somehow, that mattered enough to anchor him against collapsing destiny itself. Naruto slowly looked back toward the Otsutsuki again. Then smiled faintly. Sorry. Quote, golden chakra flared brighter around him. But I'm really stubborn. Boom. Kurama's chakra exploded across the fractured dimension violently. The distorted futures surrounding Naruto shattered apart instantly. The Otsutsuki's eyes widened slightly. Because impossibly, Naruto had rejected probability itself through sheer will. Even Eida stared in shock. You broke a future lock. Naruto blinked. I did. Kurama sounded smug immediately. Of course. Honestly, that explained nothing. Then suddenly, the giant eye behind reality fully opened. The heavens screamed violently, and the massive remnant of Shibai Otsutsuki finally started forcing itself deeper into existence. Entire mountains around Konoha distorted unnaturally. Time itself bent. People across the village collapsed from pressure alone. Shikamaru barely stayed standing. This is insane. The Otsutsuki calmly spoke. If the observer refuses correction. Its glowing eyes shifted toward Eida. Then reality will erase the unstable future entirely. Silence crushed the battlefield. Naruto slowly realized the horror. You're gonna destroy Konoha. Quote, Eida's voice trembled softly. Because of me. The sentence shattered something inside Naruto instantly. Because again, she blamed herself first. Not the monster threatening reality. Herself. Naruto sighed deeply. Then softly muttered. Seriously. Golden chakra flowed gently around Eida now. Why does everybody lonely always think they're the problem? Eida froze completely. The broken sky trembled harder above them. But Naruto kept talking anyway. You didn't choose your powers. Then quieter. You didn't choose being alone either. Silence. Tears slowly formed again in Eida's glowing eyes. Because nobody had ever separated her existence from her curse before. Not once. The Otsutsuki's voice became colder now. Attachment continues destabilizing her. Naruto immediately snapped. Good. The monument shook violently beneath him. Maybe she deserves connections anyway. Quote, the giant eye behind reality narrowed dangerously. Then, the heavens split completely open. Boom. A colossal hand emerged from the fracture in space. Ancient. Infinite. Wrong. It descended toward Konoha itself. Naruto's eyes widened instantly. Move. Thousands of Naruto clones erupted across the village immediately. Get everyone out. The clones flooded Konoha, desperately evacuating civilians while the giant hand continued descending from the sky. Buildings shattered beneath pressure alone. Reality cracked across streets. And standing atop the monument, Naruto prepared himself. Because deep down, he already knew what came next. Sacrifice. Again. Eida saw it too. Countless futures exploded through her eyes instantly. Every timeline showing Naruto dying to protect everyone. Her breathing became uneven. No. Naruto glanced toward her briefly. Hey. Quote. Then smiled softly. It'll be okay. Eida snapped instantly. Don't. Silence. Tears fell freely down her face now. Don't smile like that. The giant hand descended closer. The entire village screamed beneath it. Eida grabbed Naruto's cloak desperately. Every future. Her glowing eyes trembled violently. You keep throwing yourself away. Naruto froze slightly. Because suddenly, he realized something terrifying. Eida wasn't afraid of losing Konoha. She was afraid of losing him. And for the first time in her existence, that fear felt real, not manufactured, not forced, real. The Otsutsuki calmly observed them both. Then softly, the observer's attachment has reached catastrophic levels. Eida slowly looked upward. Then, something inside her finally broke. Not emotionally, cosmically. Blue light exploded from her body violently. WHOOOOOOOOOOOM. Every future surrounding Konoha froze instantly. The giant hand stopped descending. The fractured sky stopped moving. Time itself paused. Silence consumed everything. Naruto stared wide-eyed. Okay. He pointed slowly. That's new. Eida floated slightly above the monument now. Her glowing eyes shimmered like galaxies collapsing inside them. And suddenly, for the first time, she looked less like a lonely girl, and more like a being capable of rewriting existence. The Otsutsuki stepped backward, actually backward. Fear crossed its expression. You awakened. Eida slowly looked toward it. And when she spoke, countless futures echoed inside her voice simultaneously. I am not your observer anymore. The fractured heavens trembled violently. The Otsutsuki immediately attacked. Reality spears erupted across the sky toward Eida instantly. Too late. Naruto moved first. Golden chakra exploded around him like a sun. Rasengan. Eida's blue cosmic energy merged beside it automatically. And together, their powers collided. Fate and defiance. Loneliness and connection. Humanity and possibility. Boom. The entire sky shattered. The giant hand from beyond reality cracked apart instantly. The Otsutsuki screamed for the first time. And across Konoha, every distorted future collapsed into nothingness. Silence followed. Then, the fractured heavens slowly healed. The black distortion faded. Stars returned softly above the village. And the terrifying pressure crushing Konoha disappeared completely. Naruto landed hard atop broken stone, breathing heavily. Ow. Honestly, at least some things stayed normal. Nearby, Eida slowly descended beside him again. Her glowing eyes returned softer now. Human again. For several long seconds, neither spoke. Then quietly, Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. So, he pointed upward slightly. Did we just punch destiny? Eida stared at him silently. Then suddenly, she laughed. Really laughed. Not lonely. Not broken. Free. And hearing that sound, Naruto smiled too. Because somehow, without realizing it, they already changed each other's fate. Naruto showed Eida a future beyond loneliness. And Eida showed Naruto something he never truly considered before. That even someone destined to save the world still deserved to be chosen personally by someone too.